Overhead light. Oh, good. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Well, you're coming across clear, and you hear me okay, right? No problem there?
Hope so. Okay. Yeah, because I could put on some lights in here. I don't know. What do you think? Let me try
Well,
it.
you could use, yeah, you could use a bit more light there.
I'll try that. Let's see how it happens. All right. So
Yeah,
you're in
that's better.
Sweden. Uh-huh. Yeah. Hope I'm not keeping you up too late.
No, no, we're headquartered in Sweden. We're only 9 hours ahead of you, so it's 9 o'clock here. It's not a problem, but it's
Okay.
still daylight. We're the land of the midnight sun, in summer.
Sure. Sure. Yeah,
No
a couple of weeks
problem.
ago I was in Iceland. So
Oh, you
Norway
were?
and Iceland. Yeah. Yeah, my wife had a booked a cruise. So we did that, and
Oh,
so
that must have been incredible. Iceland.
well, all travel is incredible. It's good. I enjoy everywhere actually. So
Yeah.
had a great time. Iceland, more than I expected. We just happened to arrive in perfect weather. So however, yesterday I just got back from Arizona where we were visiting our my daughter, and that's torrid,
That
105
is
degrees
very dry
Fahrenheit.
there. Yeah.
It is just unlivable. Of course, it's not supposed to be that hot. The saguaro cactus are dying. If
Really? It's that
yeah,
hot,
they're,
huh?
they're not made
Wow.
for this kind of heat. They're because they store water and the water boils inside and boils explodes them. So
Wow, I didn't know that. I
yeah,
remember
I
once
learned
being
that
in
just
Phoenix.
a
I,
few
I
days ago.
remember once I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and I felt like I was in a sauna all the time.
It's about right. It just takes your initiative away. You get out in the
Yeah.
sun, you get, oh, I'm going to walk around the block. You get out,
Yeah.
you're literally walking in an oven.
All right, let me do the introductions here.
Okay.
So this is, this podcast is presented
Mhm.
by International Writers Inspiring Change, and we did a feature on your book, and we did a review. I actually was the one who reviewed your book,
Okay.
and then we created this podcast called the Author Shout Out Podcast. So now my name is Rial LaPlane. I'm an author. I'm also a reviewer for International Writers Inspiring Change. And we are interviewing Ronald Schulz. Do you usually go by Ronald or by Ron?
Well, I always went by Ron, and that's my character in my book because it's a memoir. However, I don't know. I decided to stick with Ronald as the author. I can't change anything on the author because Goodreads always then won't accept it in the same. It'll create a new Goodreads post. And so I'm trying to
That's
keep
right.
everything, how it is.
That's right.
Actually, I have two
Okay.
Goodreads posts, yeah, because of that.
Yeah. So we're talking to you from Seattle, Washington, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm originally from Chicago area, but you know, uh, I've been all over the world, and I'm mostly writing currently. My books are mostly in the Chicago area, and my most recent that just came out on the first is my runaway from Chicago to New Orleans at age 15. So it yeah, I'm gonna probably put. I don't have any copies yet, any hard copies. Yeah, I'm waiting for that. So,
What's the title of the book?
Teenage Runaway is my most recent now. So I've got
Okay.
a series going. Yeah,
Yeah. And they're
and
all they're all biographical, these too, right?
yes, yes, and I try to bring as much of the local history, what's going on in the world at that time. So it involves a lot of things. For example, Party at the End of the Rainbow really is also a history of the Chicago chapter of the White Panther Party, and
Right.
and basically the countercultural things going on. Briefly, how it, you don't want to be too point by, you want to blend it into a story form.
Yeah.
So,
No, I really enjoyed the book,
hmm,
and growing up more or less in the same era as you did, but I was across the border in Canada.
ah,
We didn't we had a counterculture movement going too, but it wasn't quite as passionate as the one down in the States. But we opposed the Vietnam War and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Canada
all right,
has
well,
always been the nicer version of the US, or the more politically astute, maybe. But, everything is variable. You know how it is, politics.
yeah, exactly. All right, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then we're going to get into your book. All right.
Sure. No problem.
First of all, tell us a little bit about Ronald Schulz. Who is he? And
Yeah. Well, I'm just a regular guy. I'm a survivor. I've been through things, but don't we all, But
mm,
I try to give a perspective on, not just me, but what's going on. I try to create a kind of a social political framework, that the reader can identify with, or at least understand the situation they're in also,
mm,
because all of
yeah,
us have similar trajectories through life, right? Um,
yeah,
I make as many mistakes, maybe more. And but I believe in history, warts and all. Too many people, go back and cleanse history. That's why we know zero about most of the early founders' sex lives, except what their enemies said. Because it's not, it's not all there. I I, I
no,
think it's important for us to understand how we are, all of us. Yeah.
but I think that's one of the fascinating things about your book, Party at the End of the Rainbow, because I found it. I read a lot of books. I encounter a lot of authors, and it's rare to come across a book that actually talks about the inside story of the counterculture movement back in the 60s and 70s. It's very hard to get that. I
Mhm.
think that's almost a redacted part of history in some ways.
Yeah. I agree, and it upsets me when I read about other books that were written. For example, there was a guy who wrote his own autobiography of being in the Seventh Cavalry. After the battle, of the famous battle. But he was in the Seventh Cavalry. But I was reading about him, and his publisher at the time, was shocked and cut out what I would consider the best part. All the body living that they did. They just cut it out. And so that's unfortunate. Even when people try to do it, you know,
Mm,
it is cut out. And when I find any hint that they were anything like us as human beings, not
yeah,
plaster saints, that's the
yeah,
part that bothers me, because they're not. And I know they're not. They're human. And we need
right.
to understand that, so that we can live our own life, and not think that, oh, we're not like they were. When I did
Mm,
my family history, I discovered that divorce was not at all uncommon. It just wasn't talked about. Neither was
mm,
suicide, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I've one of these days I'll write that up too, because
Well,
when we
I think again, I mean, I don't know if I said this in my review, but I felt that you were animating history the way it actually was, and because I think that in retrospect, too many people see the 60s and 70s as sort of just a big hippie movement, free love, drugs, and stuff like that. But they're missing the real important part of it, which was the counterculture movement that was trying to change things and trying to stop the Vietnam War. And it wasn't just about free love, and there was a lot of that stuff going on too.
yeah, yeah, these are words, and how are they interpreted?
Exactly.
You know, the term free love goes back to the 19th century, and
Mm,
emancipation of women from the slavery of marriage, or the whatever. And it's sometimes used the opposite way, as a way to I guess enslave women anew, oh, hey, this is, you got to accept this as free love, kind of a thing. But all these things, again, everybody views it differently, or may, and so we have to, well, it's an ongoing, I guess, renegotiation, or
mm,
we're always going to be figuring this out. I don't think
yeah, exactly.
there's a time in history when suddenly we'll say, because new generations are always coming on, and they have to relearn through experience, not through what they're told, you see.
Yeah, yeah.
However, reading can help them.
Well, there are lessons to be learned from history too, and
For
I
sure.
think that's the point that I feel that as authors, we have a duty to sort of keep the historical the truth about the history there, and so that people actually know what happened. Not like now you're going to read in books that how they've redacted World War II and taken out some of the horrors of it. And I think that's a big mistake because people are not
Yeah.
seeing what really happened.
Yeah. And I'm interested in all the voices, like
Mm.
the problem with political correctness or whatever term you want to use, woke, I don't care. We were always doing that. We're always like, oh, I'm not going to listen to him. He was a bad guy. Well, we need to hear their stories too to understand what makes them tick, even if we
That's right.
don't, I mean, not to say that we agree, and we can be critical of ourselves and others, because we're not perfect.
Yes.
We're not going to be.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
One thing that I gotta just bring this up now because when I read your book, I couldn't believe the amount of detail. I mean, that you had in the book. I mean, this is
Mhm.
55 years ago, or when you wrote the book, it's at least five
Yes.
decades, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a long time
and the
ago.
amount of
No doubt.
detail, the conversations, what was going on, how people looked, how they acted. I mean, did you keep a journal of this, or is this all coming back to you as your?
Sure. So of course, uh, it's not, most of the dialogue is not necessarily 100% word for word. I have to get into the astral plane, I guess, and go to the Akashic records or something to find if there is, such a thing. Now, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm trying to put meat on the bones. We
Yeah.
know an event happened. I know the general gist of the conversation. And I try to go with is make it as realistic as I can. However, I'm not perfect, However,
So, I mean, you're taking some literary license there to give it some
yeah,
meat and potatoes. Yeah.
but where possible, and again, I'm not perfect at this either because I can't get a hold of everybody, and a lot of the people I was with are no longer with us, but I do try to get the feedback I can. And sometimes in the transmission of that feedback, I get confused and get it wrong there too. But I'm pretty close. I'm pretty damn
Mm.
close to, you know,
Show how it happened. Yeah, I mean, it definitely comes across authentic. There's no question about that. How many people were you able to get a hold of from those days? I mean, was it half a
well,
dozen, a dozen?
okay. Okay. Yeah, there's about that. Yeah, there's not that many because I've, lost touch or, I know uh, where people have passed away and so forth. Yeah, not very many. Each book, however, in the book, Home at the Edge, uh, okay, which comes out just before, Party at the End of the Rainbow.
Mm.
I did get across an old girlfriend who gave me a lot of background on people that were both deceased and not in communication. And I had a few friends who don't want to be mentioned. And I, of course, massage their name a little bit or something. Uh,
Yeah.
I do what I can, but you're right. I mean, I'm discovering that a lot of people are extremely sensitive, and hey, and so it goes.
Exactly. You said in your bio, which we have on your feature that we did on you, you
Yeah.
said you're a semi-retired hobo. What does that mean?
Well, I wandered the world on the cheap. Nowadays, not so cheap. Okay. Like
Uh,
I say, I'm going on cruises with my wife now. I never expected to do that. That's not my preferred way to travel. I still would rather get out there and live close to the action, or kind of like wander on local transport or
Stick out the
hitchhiking.
thumb.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I did it. I managed to hitchhike across. It's coming. Hitchhike across North Africa and met an amazing assortment of people and had wonderful experiences and some not so wonderful. But yeah, you wouldn't have that when you go on a a regular tour,
Yeah.
and so it
A
is. But
manicure
I'm
tour
not.
is,
But I'm not saying that means it's not a good idea. Also, but
yeah.
well, I miss being younger and the old days. My wife won't let me do that anymore. See,
No, I understand that. I understand that. You think it's I mean it seems, I mean, I might not be wrong. Like you, I was hitchhiking when I was a teenager. You think it almost seems like it's got counter popular now to do it. Like people don't do a lot
Mhm.
of hitchhiking. Does that
Yeah,
seem like
the
it's gotten a
world
bad
is,
name? I don't know if Hollywood gave it a bad name or what.
well, yeah, the world has always been a dangerous place because human beings are unpredictable and dangerous. I mean, yes and no. How we're all human, and you can okay, we do the best we can, but you have to be careful. And I got myself in a couple situations that were a little sticky, but I came out okay. You do,
Are
I
we going
I
to see
think
some
part
of
of it
that?
is recognizing the humanness in the other person, even if they mean you harm, and
Yeah, of course.
somehow, yeah.
Some of those sticky situations going to appear in another bio sometime.
Yes. I mean, there's so much to write, and if I live long enough, I have quite a, number of books planned and in various degrees of work completion now. Like Hitchhiking Across North Africa, the roundabout pilgrimage to Nepal, staying in a Buddhist monastery, almost becoming a monk, getting too close, and then yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, those are fascinating subjects, man.
Excuse me?
Uh, I said that's fascinating stuff. I mean, that'd be a great
Yeah.
read.
I know some people are saying, well, hurry up and do it. Well, I got to go step by step. Otherwise, I'll botch it. I don't want to botch
Uh,
it.
so
Yeah.
you're not a semi-retired hobo now, but in your mind you would like to be.
Yeah. Well, as far as memory goes, I did take notes at various times, most of which
Uh,
vanished. But again, I've learned that just by the act of making notes, they somehow are a little firmer in your memory, and you can recreate them or bring them back. And I've discovered by rediscovering the old notes and finding they were verbatim what I rewrote. So I recommend it. Journal or write, but I've been a nomad quite a bit, and most of my attempts at establishing a home life vanished in my early life until my oh God, I don't know. I won't age myself here by telling you when I became settled down. but but there's a lot to tell, and I hope a lot that people can glean from it or enjoy. Yeah.
mm,
So, and thank you. I appreciate the fact that you seem to have enjoyed my book. I love it. I don't always get a lot of
very good.
feedback. I'm kind of new at all this marketing and all this stuff. I'm just figuring it out as I go.
No, I really did enjoy it. And of course, like I said, I can relate to it because I was in that same era as you.
Mhm.
Um, so let's take another subject because I really like to talk about this counterculture movement. Um, do you think that being part of the movement as you were, that you succeeded in making changes in, in the culture?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm a little disappointed at some left wing, shall I call them left wing people, who are almost right wing, or you know what I mean, or maybe you know. It's complicated. It's like we're going back to, you know, uh, evoking, a lot of Stalinist imagery, or, flipping to authoritarian, concepts. And, human beings, politics is complicated because human beings are complicated. And I find people, for example, on the issue of Ukraine,
Mm.
there are people who are very pro-Russian about it. And, which is
In
hard
your
for me.
connections in your circle or
We have a lot of Ukrainians here in Seattle, and I've hung out with them, and I've done a few things with them. Not enough, I mean, like I say,
Mm.
at this stage of my life, there's only okay. I'm allowing myself to be limited in, my energy where I'm putting it, where I can put it.
Yeah,
But
of course.
but to me, they are the righteous cause. I mean, not that they're perfect. Not, again, like the old It's true. I mean, I know the whole history of the Ukraine. I know about the World War II social political situation and how many people had to make choices, which now we would call barbaric. And but we again, like hidden history in general, we have to understand why this occurred, and that was then, and this is now. And to use
Mm,
that as an excuse to invade a country and bomb kindergartens, you know what I mean? That
yeah,
is not the way.
it's barbaric.
It's
Yeah, it's
barbaric,
barbaric.
yeah. And so people who espouse that on some vague political notion, uh, that I mean, it's just not right. I mean, yeah, but okay, I'll say no more at that point. You
No,
know,
but I appreciate that perspective. I agree with you
yeah,
completely.
yeah,
Um, it's just not right. But in
yeah,
terms of making changes, back to my question on your involvement with the counterculture movement back in the late 60s and early
yeah.
70s, do you see, or did you see at the time any changes, or in retrospect, do you feel that the counterculture movement had an influence, a positive effect?
Yeah, um, that's there's no right or there's no yes or no answer on this kind of stuff because there are individual approaches. There are still people living in the 60s in the current time, pretty much,
Yeah, yeah,
and there are some people who are still it depends on their personal growth or understanding or how they put it all together, what they learned from it. There are wonderful people who are wonderful, but maybe still a little naive in some ways, but that's how I would see it from my perspective, a little naivety is maybe good, I mean,
mm, mm,
I believe in a kind of a balance. We have to be realistic. I mean, the Bible, Jesus said it right. He said, "Be as wise as serpents and as gentle as lambs," kind of thing. In other words, don't be foolishly, like uh, there's a little good in everybody. That doesn't mean I'm just going to open up and
wow.
say, "Yeah, whatever you do is right," kind of a thing.
Yeah, there's a balance that has to be struck there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we have to recognize that. I don't see uh, there's a little good and bad mixed in everything, and no, I mean, there are people who attack Abraham Lincoln because he wasn't a 21st century a non-racist, whatever. I mean, he was a product of his time. And they're saying, well, okay, he went against slavery, but look at this and this and this. He wanted to send everybody back to Africa at different times of his life. Yeah, it's a growth thing that we go through. So all our heroes have flaws. Okay. I don't care,
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson, we could go down the whole list. Now, does that mean we toss them out? We hate them? No. Our grandfathers had flaws. I write all about that in my book coming out. That's already out. Teenage Runaway. There's a whole section in there on. Well, I won't give too much away. It was
How
during.
about your grandfather?
Yes, my own grandfather. You
Uh,
learn. I mean, we when we look at we see them as perfect, but when we experience their racism, which is a product of their times and their upbringing, when
mm,
we understand the complexity of human nature,
mm,
we should learn not to be shocked at these things, not to say, and what do we do? Do we forgive and forget? Well, we have to understand and we have to
mm,
balance all this, we
mm.
just don't put people up against the wall and shoot them because they're not perfect, and our
No, of course.
tendency on this side of the border, and I won't say anything your side of the border, I'm less familiar, but people are the overdone wokeness can have a bad effect where people just throw people under the bus because they said something, did something, maybe even 10 years ago or 20 or 30 years ago. So what? There again, we're dealing with human beings, and we have to look at how we can benefit each other and not expect them to be angels.
Yeah, I think just a takeoff on that statement about the over wokeness of it. I mean, I agree, woke is important in
Yeah.
sensitivity to people's rights and stuff like that. But if we become a semantically uh, chained culture, where semantics suddenly are controlling you, then you've taken away a lot the right to freedom and the right to speech.
Yeah.
So
That's right. So the word woke, it's been around a long time. It wasn't just invented recently, you know. I mean, you go back to the wide awakes and the old American history and this and that. It's just a word. What does it mean to be awoke, to be wake, to wake up and look around? You know, it's a good thing, but it depends on, I mean, the meanings, there are shades of meaning. You know, there are people who say, oh, woke, you know, yeah, is maybe like expecting too much or expecting perfection. Okay. So I'm not on
Well,
either side. I'm
if you
down the
look at the
middle.
60s, if you
Yeah.
look at the 60s movement that you were part of, and
Yeah.
throughout the 60s, that really was woke because that was anti-racism, cultural integration. Free
Mhm.
love is just another way of saying, is another version of woke, really, in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
It isn't just about the sex part of it, it's about love.
Right.
So,
Right. And that was essentially how it was meant by a lot of people. But then again, you got to remember everyone had they, people use things to their own advantage. Okay.
yeah,
Whatever it is, whatever
yeah.
political or social thing, um, you have people like the mothers of invention who poked fun at all this back in the day, I mean,
Yeah.
Frank Zappa and them, they were making fun of the plastic hippies, kind of a thing. And I mean, okay, we have to laugh at ourselves, we have to balance. What do these things mean? I mean, it's a word. What does the word encompass, Everybody makes up their own idea, and well, but we have a common
Well,
consensus. Yeah.
we got to remember that we can laugh at ourselves because I mean we can't take it all so seriously. It is a
Yeah.
game after all, you know.
And I
So
think there was a lot of that in the counterculture movement. I mean, okay, we had diehard, maybe Stalinist, Trotskyite, humorless politicos on one side, and we still do. And we had laugh at it all, have a great time. Uh, you know, on the one hand, a little bit naive, and on the other hand, a little bit too out of it, hippies, you might call them. So there were yippies and hippies, let's put it that way. And the yippies were sometimes more hippies than the hippies. So it depends on who you're talking about, who you're with. Um,
uh, I mean,
yeah,
I noticed that in your book. The thing is that I picked up on it. I'm sure other people do when they read it. Is that there's a flippancy about it. It's a flippancy. It's like that's the attitude. It's like anything goes. Okay, we can change things. And like you said, it's this idealism to the extreme. But it's a
sure.
flippancy which makes it work.
Yeah, yeah. You know, uh, we if we have to have a sense of humor because that helps us balance.
Yeah, I agree with
Now
you.
again, we do have to be freaking serious at times. Okay. I mean, we got to, it depends on the situation, but we got to have an element of humor in it, or we make mistakes. When we're too serious, again, we go in shooting or something, or we disavow people that maybe we could converse with and reach some kind of a consensus agreement or beneficial negotiative
Yeah.
thing, whatever. Now, yeah, I mean, look, do you think hippies always get along with each other? It doesn't happen. And I'm also writing on the commune that I was involved with up in Wisconsin. Okay. And, you know, we had a lot of disputes. We had a lot of, we were trying to create an ideal society as we are always doing, trying to do. And we
Mhm.
failed, but we succeeded. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. Okay. Uh, we didn't work everything out, but we had a marvelous time, and we I think ironed out a lot of issues within each of our individual lives, and that's all you can really do. We
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
yeah
All right, well, here's another question for you. And again, it's on the same theme of the counterculture movement. Looking at current movements, contemporary movements, particularly with the young people, uh,
yeah
do you see any parallelism, any parallels between the 60s, 70s movement and what's happening today?
yes yes. I mean, we had Vietnam and other interventions in foreign affairs that were going on in U.S. politics and Canadian also, in some degree.
Yeah.
Um, and now we have this, the Middle East has always been with us. It's just got ratcheted up to such a degree. when and I'm going to write about this too. I mean, I wandered through that part of the country, of the world. I hitchhiked across the West Bank. I tried to, I got along. I hung out with as many Palestinians as Israelis, Uh, some people will hate me for that. You see what I'm saying? I had my life
Yeah.
threatened by a West German simply because I intended to explore that part of the world. You can't cross that border. That's evil. Okay. But I believe in trying to understand, taking a good look. And but some people, you got to have somewhat of an open mind, or at least a degree of openness, even to
Mm,
things that are problematic. Now what's going on now? I mean, it's inexcusable. It's totally crazy. It just
exactly.
makes no sense what's going on in Gaza, especially. It's just, and well, hey, what's going on in the West Bank, which gets less press, but there has become much more vicious and murderous of late. I mean, a lot of things have happened that aren't getting covered much in the media. And how much can you take in a single day to keep track of everything? But
Mm. But we
I
see a
have a lot of
parallel
sympathy.
right there. We see
Uh-huh.
a parallel right there because the Gaza, what's happening with the Palestinians, which, like you said, is just murderous. I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many protesters out in the streets, mass movements of, you know,
sure.
thousands and tens of thousands of people. In comparison to the Vietnam protests back then,
Yeah,
uh, is it comparable? Do you think, or is it
yeah.
even more now? Is it because it's even more murderous?
Yeah, I know. That's why it's very hard to compare different things
Yeah,
in different times. And I'm very sympathetic to people who are protesting. Uh, it, it, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. To be honest with you, I'm a little bit stumped as to what the right
mm,
so how to go about this. I wish I had the answers. Bang. Oh yeah, this should be done. I mean, for example, I was involved in the Weatherman Rage in Chicago, in 1969, which was in some ways a revenge for what happened in the Democratic Convention. It was a kind of a payback thing. Uh, it was less known, but at the moment it was, we took a very aggressive stance. Some people say that actually, and then there was the Weatherman Underground developed immediately after that. Some people say
right.
that that was a terrible strategy, that it was that had counterproductive. And again, maybe yeah, maybe so. It's hard to say. I mean, it's the same thing. Well, look what Gaza. Look at how Gaza started. Not started, but this October rage that they did crossing the border in a murderous spree. Now, was a strategic blunder at the least. Okay, forget about the
Yeah.
humanity part. Okay, that I mean, now we have to be smarter than that. They have to be smarter than that. And I understand both sides. I hear from people on both sides of this issue. Uh, we of course it's made it harder to find a solution you know so
Yeah.
okay, yeah, it's I'm
It's a tough subject. It's tough. Yeah,
sure.
I understand. It's a very tough subject because nobody is solving it right now, and that's the problem.
Yeah,
Um,
the concept, well, first of all, you creating the Gaza into a free fire zone, like was happened in Vietnam. I talked to helicopter pilots who admitted that everything they saw in the free fire zones went.
just
A
shooting. Yeah.
woman walking across the patty, cut her off. She shouldn't be there. She's got to be Viet Cong, kind of a thing. Very similar to what's going on in Gaza, free fire zone,
Absolutely.
pretty much. Even people are lining up for bread. They're getting. Now maybe there was a gorilla in there somewhere, but
Mm,
it's overkill. Now, this
literally.
strategy, the whole way they're going about this is completely doesn't make sense, from a humanitarian standpoint. And if you
Well,
look,
I think we should just say that humanitarian is not even part of their narrative. They just decided that they're not going to be humanitarian. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah. There needs, yeah, there needs to be something from both sides that need to come to terms with forgetting the past and coming across starting day one, turn over a new leaf. But I think it's probably true that Hamas could not ultimately be the negotiator. I mean, they're in charge, okay, but they really need other voices on their side. And of course, Netanyahu won't let any voice. He's in charge, so there are other voices in Israel, but
That's
they're not
right. That's
being.
right.
Yeah,
It's being silenced so that
yeah,
there's only one side to the narrative.
that's
All
right.
right, well, we'll switch off that subject because it's pretty horrific. Um, so we talked a little bit about your book. It just released in the 1st of July, the new one you
Yeah,
said?
the newest one. Uh, I've got just this terrible picture here, uh, uh, which
Teenage,
teenage
Teenage
runaway.
Runaway.
And so basically, this picks up 1967, 15-year-old boy experiencing bullying and basically social dysfunction in suburban Chicago and making a run for it and living for a while on Skid Row in New Orleans and
Uh,
finding, trying to reinvent himself, having to reinvent himself because the looking in the mirror was horrifying, as it often is for teenagers, and I fully
yeah,
understand.
when we look back on that part of our lives, yeah.
Sure, most people forget about it and they close the door, but you don't remember what was going
So,
on. I mean, but
exactly.
there was okay. So we're dealing, and then coming back and taking a new look at the society he came from. A deeper, better look, including relatives and during that burn baby burn summer of 1967, in which ghettos across the nation exploded. That was one of the. It happened on a regular basis, but that was quite a year for that. While I'm going to visit Southern Illinois, racist cracker relatives of mine, and at the same time exploring a little bit of my American Indian heritage in the process. Yeah, there's a lot of things woven in there. I won't get into it any more than that, but
Oh, it's good. That would be an interesting read. We should read that book here over here at
I
Irish.
recommend it. I do, and I certainly, yeah. Okay.
Is it out on Amazon now, right? Amazon?
Yes, it's on Amazon and Netflix, and I believe Kobo and other places too. Whatever. I don't know much about Kobo, but yeah, by the way, my publisher Dow, and it's a Canadian publisher. He's up there in the a little east of Toronto, and yeah, we've got a good. We this is the fourth book in the series. Okay, and there's more coming up. I got
Yeah,
another one in the works. Yeah,
I look forward to it. I look forward to reading them.
great.
All right. Well, we're gonna winding down on the podcast now, but I have a question that I always ask authors at the end. This is the last question for you. What advice would you give if you were going to tell a novice or a new author advice? What would you give them? What would be the tip?
Okay. Well, write what inspires you. Write what is bursting to come out of you. There's, uh, I mean, a lot of people just sit down and, it's okay. That's okay too. People just come up with something and they want to write about it, but it doesn't grip them maybe. But if something grips you, if something has you just clutching your heart, that's where you need to write. Whether it's saleable or not is another story, and that's the problem. I mean, right now we have genres. Everybody's buying science fiction and fantasy, maybe, or women's fiction and whatever. Okay, those are fads, and that happens. But for you as a creative person, as a artist, as a word artist, or attempting to be so, maybe you're not. But if something is gripping you, you will be, and you write and then you rewrite and then you rewrite again. And that's the best advice I can give. And that's what I do. I mean,
I think that's the best advice you can actually give to a new author,
yeah,
because otherwise you like you said, you can get into the mechanical structuring or what's selling or how do I want to like make money on this. Okay, that is one approach if you want to just become a marketed author. But if you want to write something that's meaningful and lasting, I think what you just said, perfect.
sure,
Perfect.
sure.
Well, we could go on for another hour or so. I could delve even deeper into it, but I don't want to blow the whistle on the details of your book,
Yep.
Party at the End of the Rainbow. I think it's a great book, and I think people should just read that and
Okay.
get a glimpse of that part of history.
Okay.
So with that, Ronald, we're gonna be ending off here now. I just want to mention that we're gonna post this podcast interview to our podcast page, so it's there permanently if you want to refer people to it.
Oh, great.
We'll also promote it around through our social media circles, and then I will also get the iWick people will send you a copy of the video so that you can post it to your own website or whatever you want to do with it.
Great. Well, we'll be in touch.
Yeah, definitely get back to the iWick guys if you want to have your new book reviewed or featured. I think I certainly want to read it.
Good. Good. Yeah.
Well, sir, it's been an honor and a pleasure.
And thank you very much. I'm very appreciative of this.
Yeah,
Okay.
I really enjoyed the talk. Have a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Okay.